Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to the Get Organized at Work podcast. I'm Kayla. I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about why your to-do list is failing you, reasons why leader-centered work is the ultimate solution for getting organized at work. So if you know me, you know that I love leader-centered work. It has a special place in my heart because it helped me get out of a hole of endless to-do listness, if that's a word, and really start being more intentional and productive in my days without doing more. It has helped me grow in my career, get offered more opportunities and responsibility and accountability, as well as be promoted. So I know this can do the same thing for you if you'll be open-minded about it. So today, I want to talk about the problem with to-do lists and how leader-centered work can help you with those problems. But before we dive in, I want to invite you to join my free Get Organized at Work podcast community. Inside, you're going to find a free leader-centered work template along with linked videos where I explain each section of the template and walk you through how to create your own leader-centered work system. So it is the perfect companion to this episode. So I don't want you to miss that. Everything will be linked in the description below or in the podcast show notes so you can join the Get Organized at Work community. Also, if you're listening to this in real time, there is still time to join us for the Project Roadmap webinar that I'm hosting tomorrow, Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. It's going to be at 3:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. I know it's a weird time, but mama got to pick her kids up from work, and I also have to do my day job. So if you can't attend live, no worries. The replay will be available inside the community. And this webinar is going to help you take your projects from chaos to clarity. So do not miss it. Another reason to join the community for free. All right, let's get into the episode. So are you stuck in an endless cycle of to-do lists that never seem to end? Do you feel like you're spinning your wheels, checking off tasks, but not making progress toward your bigger goals? If so, you are not alone, my friend. Today, we're talking about your to-do list and why it might be holding you back and how leader-centered work can help you shift from being busy to truly being productive and intentional. So there's going to be two parts of this episode. Part one is why focusing on tasks can leave you stuck and overwhelmed. And part two is going to be why leader-centered work is a game changer and how to overcome common objections to it, because I have heard many objections to it. I always try to bring leader-centered work into the coaching that I do with my leaders who report to me or just other supervisors who I mentor. I have shared this concept of leader-centered work with all the supervisors that work in our system for a laboratory. And I know that when people truly work and strive to adopt it and sustain it and tweak it the way they need to, that it has been a total game changer for them. They always come back to me and say how much better they feel with a system and not just being stuck in the daily tasks. So let's jump in. Part one, the problem with to-do lists. The first thing is tasks versus outcomes mindset. Focusing solely on tasks keeps people in reactive mode and short-sighted. When you're stuck in the weeds of the daily tasks and to-dos, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. It's really the outcomes that truly matter. So this is a mindset thing that I'm sure I'll go more into depth in at some point in time. But when I think about your role and why it exists, your purpose for why your job or your specific role exists, we're really thinking about outcomes. If your role did not exist, what would be the gap in the organization? So let me give you an example. So my role as transfusion medicine program manager at my healthcare organization is there's many things that I do, many purposes in my role, but one of the purposes is to work towards standardizing the things that we do in our program so that patients can have and receive the same level of care or standard level of care throughout all of the places they come to receive services, right? But my purpose is not to approve procedures, but that is a task that I do that works in partnership to furthering the purpose of my job, which is standardization, right? So approving procedures is something I have to do, but it's not the outcome. But if I get stuck in just working from a to-do list of procedure approvals, I might never think about like, okay, where am I going with this? What is the bigger picture? And that can lead to resentment. It can kind of give you an emotional toll of always feeling like, okay, I've got more tasks to complete. So part 2 is to-do lists are never ending. So once you cross something off your to-do list, another thing gets added. That's the nature of to-do lists. And it creates a cycle of overwhelm, burnout, because you never feel like you truly accomplished enough. And then that turns into stories like, wow, I guess I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough for this job. Maybe it's not the right job for me. We get stuck in the weeds of the never-ending to-do list. Number 3, to-do lists lead to missed opportunities for growth. Focusing on small tasks prevents progress towards strategic goals and career growth. So like I mentioned before, we're stuck with our head looking down, but we haven't picked our head up to look at the bigger picture of the outcomes or kind of check in on our goals. To-do lists don't offer any opportunity for self-reflection or, hey, how did I do this week? It only is a checkbox to monitor whether or not we did something. It is not a measure of if we did the right thing towards the right goal. So instead of spending time on tasks that could advance your career, like networking, learning a new skill, or planning something strategic, you're stuck clearing your inbox or handling low priority items because it feels good to check off the list. So if to-do lists aren't the answer, what is? Let's talk about why leader-centered work is a superior solution for getting organized and achieving your career goals. So that's part 1, super quick, but I wanted to get through it because let's talk about part 2, why leader-centered work is superior. So let's just start with, what is leader-centered work? Leader-centered work is a proactive system that helps you focus on outcomes, not just tasks. It's about aligning your daily, weekly, and monthly habits with your bigger goals. So it's different than a to-do list in that to-do lists are passive and reactive, whereas leader-centered work is active and strategic. So there's a couple key benefits that I really want to highlight. And number 1, obviously, as I've been preaching, is that it focuses on outcomes. So it allows you to prioritize actions that contribute to your long-term goals. So for example, instead of responding to emails, you might focus on building team alignment through communication and then working backwards. What does that mean? Well, how do I want to communicate? I can communicate in several different ways. One of them might be through email, but there might also be other strategic ways to communicate for team building. It also allows you to level load your calendar. So it helps you intentionally plan for time for strategic work and prevents burnout by creating space for growth. So this is the point where I highly recommend you join the community so you can watch the videos on how to build your leader-centered work. But if I were to give you a high-level synopsis, it's got your daily habits or things you need to do. And some of these are tasks, right? Like attend huddles. But what are you doing while attending huddles? You're listening for ways that you can remove barriers for your team, or you are escalating to your leader. You're intentionally communicating. And though that's great, but it also ensures that you have time for all your meetings and that you have all time to work on your projects. And my favorite thing about my leader-centered work tool is that I have a space to calculate how much time that you're in meetings. And my rule of thumb is that if I'm booked with over 50% of my day in meetings, that is too much. I really try to max my meeting time to 50%. There's some days where it's just not possible, maybe a few days out of the month where it's just really meeting heavy, and I will accept that. But this system allows you to reflect and say, wait, hold on. Maybe there's an opportunity to move that meeting to a different day so that I can prioritize time to actually get work done instead of sitting in meetings. It's a time for you to reflect and say, oh yeah, I never get anything done on Wednesdays because of XYZ. And it can be used as a communication tool for your leader. It's just a good self-awareness tool for yourself. It's a good way to also give yourself grace to be like, oh yeah, today is one of those just bad days. And my goal for today is to be present and soak up information instead of feeling like, oh, I didn't get anything on my to-do list done. The only thing on my to-do list for that day would have been to be present in those meetings. So it just allows you to kind of pause and level load your calendar and actually see what's going on instead of heading into the day like, oh my gosh, my to-do list is 50 items long and I'm in meetings all day. Now I'm going to beat myself up about that or try to multitask during meetings and actually lower the quality of my work. So here's some common objections to leader standard work. Objection number one, I tried it before and it didn't work. So here's my tough love is the system only works if you commit to updating it regularly and adapting it to your changing needs. So I think the misconception with leader standard work is that when people create it, they're like, okay, one and done. And then they try it and then they learn something maybe. And then that thing maybe changed the way they work. And then they're like, okay, cool. And then they try to use it again or they never tweak it. And they're like, oh, it just doesn't work. Leader standard work is living and breathing. And that's because as you adapt, your work adapts. As you show up differently, the leader standard work has to change. So your standard might go from tasks and to-dos to more strategic thinking. And then that means your leader standard work changes from checking the box to, okay, let me really think about this week and next week. And what are the things I should be working on to create the most success for myself and my team in the next 2 weeks? See how that's just very different. So when people give up after they tried it before and it didn't work, I'm like, okay, so did you try keeping it updated or reflecting on the week and tweaking? And they're like, oh, nah, I just kind of stopped using it. So for me, when I first started using it, I kind of could take note of, okay, so I wasn't able to make it to these meetings, these ones I could, or I didn't have enough time to work on XYZ, and I wasn't as prepared as I would have liked to. And that's when you start tweaking the way that you show up, how you schedule meetings, and how you prepare for meetings and adapt the next week. It's all about learning and continuous improvement. Objection number two that I hear is, I don't need to track everything I do. Right? We're like, oh, I don't need to track everything. Like, this seems too micromanagey of myself, or like, I'm just writing stuff down to check the box. And here's what I would say about that is the goal isn't to track every single thing. It's actually to identify and prioritize the work that truly matters. So the way that the system works is it provides clarity on why tasks aren't getting done and where your time is going. So if you don't track what you're doing, you're not going to get an accurate reflection on your week, your days and your weeks, and you might not come to the realization of why you're still feeling overwhelmed or burnt out. Sometimes we just hate to admit that we're doing too much or we're not focusing on the right things because it will force us to change. So I would just encourage you to list out everything that you're doing on your leader standard work, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, yearly, however you want to do it. And then think about, like, can that thing be eliminated or should it stay? Should it be delegated? What should I do with that? Here's a good example. So I one of my teams has multiple huddles a day. I just go to the morning one because my job is to escalate barriers for the day, or to handle barriers that they're having for the day and to feel prepared and informed so I can report up to my leadership, which is once a day. They have a shift huddle at the end of the day as well, and I don't attend that one. I used to attend and it just felt like I wasn't able to attend consistently, and it was overlapping with other meetings and things I needed to get done to support the team. So I had it on there and the box wasn't being checked. It wasn't going. So I was able to reflect, like, okay, it's something that I'm tracking I'm supposed to do. I'm not able to make it. Missing isn't having any big issues for me. And so I decided and talked to my leader about it. Like, what would it look like if I just let that go and didn't attend? Is that okay? And it turns out it was. And so, but if I didn't track it, I would have maybe felt like bad, like, oh, okay, well, I'm not doing it, so I'm not writing it down, but I feel like I should be going. Instead, it was an intentional decision to not do something to make space for something else, whether that was on my calendar or also clarity in my mind. Um, the opposite is true, right? Something that I'm doing over and over again and realizing like, oh, it's not really adding any value. Maybe I can stop doing that thing. Or maybe that's something that needs to be done at a different cadence. Maybe it can be done weekly instead of daily. So this is why tracking what you're doing helps you adapt and change instead of feeling like micromanagey. Objection number 3 is I just have too much work. So the point of leader standard work is that it can help you advocate for yourself. You can use it to show your boss where your time is going and make a case for reprioritizing or delegating. So when people come to me and say, hey, I'm just so busy, I have so much work, and then I ask, okay, what is taking up your time? Sometimes people are not able to articulate that until they've had it written down. And I also am always curious, like, okay, so how many times a week are you doing that? What's the cadence? How often? Like, paint a picture for me. So, leader standard work makes it super visual, a visual storytelling of your work. It helps you reflect. And without it, I think your leader will usually come back and say, okay, I need more. Tell me more. If you go to them with your leader standard work, it's clear and obvious what you've been doing. It's also, like I said, good for you to see, okay, I feel like I'm busy and I have too much. Is that a story I'm telling myself or is that real? And you could look, oh, wow. Yeah. Like I said, Wednesdays is really bad. So many meetings. Maybe I can do something about this and swap it and lighten my week by level loading my days. Now I feel better. Or, hey, gosh, I feel like I'm doing this thing, but it's not within the scope of my role. I want to communicate that up to my leader and show them how much time it's taking. It can also be really helpful to advocate for additional positions. If you feel like you're doing so much work, it's like the work of 2 people, document it. That's the best way to get support. So, leader standard work is definitely a tool to advocate for yourself. And the last major objection that I hear a lot is it's too complicated. And that's the thing is the key and the way that I teach it is the key is to keep it simple. You want to focus on high level buckets that stay consistent over time. So examples of buckets would be strategic goals, team development, and recurring tasks. I think where people get tripped up and when you get really detail oriented, you might put, check my inbox, and then you might put like 10 sub steps under that. That's too much. Keep it simple. And if you definitely need a method for, let's say, checking your inbox because it's something you want to work on, for a short amount of time, you could subtask that out and say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I do a specific system. And my system, RDS for email, is read, do something, or take time to reply. I think, what's my S? Read, do, sort. That's what it is. So read, or do something about it, or sort, put it in a folder, file it, archive, whatever. And so that you might want to track, okay, did I do a good job actually sorting or archiving this week? And if I didn't, okay, great. That's something I need to work on. But for the most part, I wouldn't subtask. I would just say, okay, I need to attend huddles today. These are my recurring tasks. Okay, I'm going to work on 2 strategic projects today. Know which ones you're going to work on and check the box. If you're unable to do them that day, move them to the next day. Keep it at a level that you can stay consistent with. Do not get too detailed because then you will have sort of like analysis paralysis. This is something that I can help you with in my community and that you'll see when you watch the videos on how to create the structure. So now I just want to talk about how to get started with leader standard work. If you're like super curious and you're interested, the first practical step I would offer you is start small. Identify 3 to 5 high-level categories of things you want to learn about your day and your weeks. And the second thing is schedule regular check-ins to review and update your plan. So maybe you want to think about what are the things I'm doing every day? What are 1 to 2 projects I'm working on that I want to think strategically about in the next couple weeks? And then what's a good day or time where I can look back at the week and see how I did? Maybe that's Friday mornings, or maybe it's Monday mornings before you start the week. And then make your new leader standard work for the next week before the week starts. And now you're in the habit of being super proactive. My favorite thing about leader standard work is I would go to work and I never would wonder, what am I supposed to work on when I got there? It was like, oh, the plan's already made. I've thought about this. Great. I'll just follow my plan. Right. Or if the plan wasn't going as planned, I could move things around because I knew that this is what I wanted to get done this week. And if I keep getting interrupted or fires pop up, okay, that's fine. I'm going to take care of those and work to fit in as much as I can, be flexible, learn, and then get better the next week. So for me, leader standard work helped me reduce my overwhelm, burnout, and resentment in my job. It helped me stay focused, and it helped me move from bench tech, who was very task oriented, a very much an individual contributor, to a leader who was in charge and accountable for high level projects and outcomes. It helped me show other people that I could be extremely productive without being burnt out and with using my team in ways that focus on their strengths. And people were asking me, how are you getting so much done in so little amount of time? They'll say things like, I don't know how you're doing it all. And it's leader standard work, the intentionality of really thinking about what I'm doing every day instead of going in blind, that helps me do that. To-do lists often fail because they're reactive, they're overwhelming to people, and they don't align with strategic goals. But leader standard work is proactive, outcome focused, and designed to help you achieve both daily and long-term success. So I want to remind you to join the Get Organized at Work community, access the free leader standard work templates. There's multiple in there, and the how-to videos and other exclusive resources that I have for the community. And I want to encourage you to register for that Project Roadmap webinar that's on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 3:45 Central, or catch the replay inside the community. So my final thoughts on this is that getting organized isn't about doing more. It's actually about doing what matters. With leader standard work, you can finally take control of your time and focus on what truly moves the needle. So next time, we're going to talk about more tactical and strategic work that you can accomplish using leader standard work. You do not want to miss it. And thank you for tuning in. And I cannot wait to see you inside the community or at the next episode. Maybe think about sharing this with a friend or a colleague who's interested to take their productivity to the next level. All right, until next time, take care.